For Victims and Villains, my name is Josh, and today we are heading to South Korea to talk about the horror film Devil's Stay. Devil's Stay tells the story of a family grieving the loss of their daughter, only to find out that demonic play is at work during their grieving process. I've really been saying this for a while, that Exorcist movies feel like they're just a dime a dozen. It feels like more often filmmakers are interested in copying the formula of The Exorcist because they've seen that it works and that it's celebrated, rather than actually telling compelling stories that are about the process of exorcisms or the emotions of the families of the individual going through the exorcism, or just a number of other things that made that film so compelling in the first place. Case in point, we saw this just a few years ago with The Exorcist Believer, and just how messy and how sloppy it was, and the current landscape trend of requels or legacy sequels. Then you have a small production from Argentina called When Evil Lurks, giving us a masterclass and as serving as a reminder at what made those films so compelling in the first place. And our South Korean friends that we're talking about today, the movie Devil's Stay joins When Evil Lurks, just being one of the best and most compelling Exorcist films that I have seen in such a long time. I really do believe that this is the best Exorcist movie that we have gotten since When Evil Lurks, and I will say that both of those films will go down as two of the greatest and most underappreciated genre films of this decade. This movie is a masterclass in storytelling. This movie just hits all of the right emotional beats that you want, and much like Train to Busan did with zombies, this film leaves you just in tears by the time that you actually get to the credits. Like, the last 5-10 minutes of this movie are just heart-wrenching, but it is told in such a way that you can't help but smile through the tears by the time that you get to that point. This is just storytelling at its best. Like, there's no other way for me to articulate that. And the fact that the majority of this movie takes place in a singular location, not only is it one of the best Exorcist movies that we've gotten, not only is it one of the best religious horrors that we've gotten, but it is also one of the best single location horror films that we have gotten this year. I mean, this film just hits so many blocks. Like, I don't even know really where to articulate and where to start with this film. It just fires on every cylinder imaginable that you would want. The acting across the board is absolutely incredible, and I love the way that this film has this habit of existing in the present day, existing both in this realm and in the otherworldly realm, depending on what you believe, but also the way that it also simultaneously exists in the past as well, to really articulate the relationship at its core between this father and his daughter. Not since Father Karras in The Exorcist have I had such a riveting performance from a priest and been so compelled by their backstory and their overall character journey in the course of this movie. Now, don't get me wrong, the majority of this movie does follow Somi's family, who, just for reference, is kind of the Reagan of this universe, and kind of their grieving process. And I love the fact that this film is so intent on the grieving process amidst every other supernatural element this film possesses. But on the flip side of that, we also are introduced to Father Michael, who has such a compelling backstory and riveting character journey throughout the course of this film. While this film does hit a lot of those drama beats with the grieving family, a lot of those horror elements that are otherworldly or supernatural definitely have this atmospheric quality to it that I feel like a lot of other Exorcist movies really fail to articulate. Kind of also having that as a visual element as well, this movie just does such a fantastic job at being captivating visually and even terrifying in some portions, the way that they articulate some of a lot of this stuff. Now, that's not to say that this movie doesn't hit on the tropes of the supernatural or religious horror, more specifically the Exorcist subgenre, but those elements are so far and few between. I think I can count on one hand how many of those tropes this movie hits, because this movie just feels like it is so compelling thanks to the story of this family and the priest and all of the other elements that are surprisingly work really well through the course of this. Now, there are definitely some moments where the film kind of gets away from the grieving family or from the father to kind of give some backstory on how all of this stuff happened. But even that stuff is really compelling and ties really well in. Every time the narrative shifts or the story deviates, it never feels like it's completely off balance, because it weaves it into the story. It just feels like another element to be riveted by. The pacing of this movie is impeccable. I love the way that this story is deliberately told over the course of 3 days. When you see it in context, you understand why, and you understand, again, what makes it so riveting to watch as well. But each day that this story takes place, it really builds up the anxiety, and it really builds up the tension, and it just does it in such a masterful way that it feels like you're going through the grieving process with this family as well. And those moments where the story does step back into the past only makes the present that much more captivating. With that said, I am ready to run this one through our Rorschach rating scale. I'm going to go ahead and give Devil's Stay a 5 out of 5. I was riveted by this movie from start until its heartbreaking finale. This movie hits all of the emotional beats that I so desperately want from other Exorcist movies, done extraordinarily well. It's acted, it's incredibly well. The pacing is impeccable. There's an atmospheric element to it, and this movie just proves that there is still lifeblood left in the Exorcist subgenre, and this is one of the best takes on that subgenre that I have ever seen. This movie is just utterly amazing from start until finish, and I cannot say enough about it, and it will go down as one of the most underappreciated genre entries that we will see this year. Devil's Stay will hit DVD, Blu-ray, and digital beginning this Tuesday, March 18th from Wellgo USA. Pick it up wherever you guys get your get your physical media from, or rent your movies from. We'll provide links in the show notes below. But let's talk about mental health, shall we? If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we will take a theme of mental health out of the film which we're reviewing, talk about it for a few moments in the hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. Aside from being one of the best Exorcist movies that I have seen in a long time, as I have been gushing about this entire video, this is arguably probably one of the best representations of survivor's guilt that I have ever seen put to film. So Park Shin-yang plays our father figure in the course of this, and he also plays his daughter's heart specialist as well, that does the heart transplant on her throughout the course of this film. And anytime the film kind of takes a step back into the past, it's primarily between a conversation between him and his daughter prior to the operation. A lot of Yang's arc throughout the course of this movie definitely feels like it is that redemption arc, but it is the struggle of trying to cope with being a survivor as well, and kind of battling with the new reality of survivor's guilt being something that you're going to have to live with for the rest of your life until you find peace within it. And as someone that has also struggled off and on over the years, has been in therapy specifically for being a survivor, survivor's guilt is a very real thing. It is a very troubling thing to deal with. And if I could just speak from someone that struggles with survivor's guilt, and just speak on how this movie utilizes survivor's guilt, is not only one of the best mental health portions of this movie, but also at the same time just to speak and say that it's okay to not be okay. Understanding that you're going to have those good days and bad days, just stopping and breathing and reminding yourself that it's okay to feel those emotions and to work through them and to find closure for those feelings. Now that the process is going to look completely different for me than it did for you, or vice versa, or the person that may be watching this video after you. Honestly, I think what has helped me in the past has been survivor guilt groups that are specifically designed for people that have gone through similar instances. Therapy, like I said, has been an incredible source for me as well. But also, just hitting the show notes below, you guys will find a bunch of links and numbers and services that in our mental health resource library that could also be of value to you. Because at the end of the day, as cliche as it sounds, I mean, we are not our worst days, and those days are in the past. There is no changing what could have been, but only improving on what can be and accepting the things that we can control and the things that are in our future that are within, again, our control. If you or someone you know is currently struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, please click the links in our show notes below to check out our previously mentioned mental health resource library. Once again, Devil's Day comes home to Blu-ray and DVD as well as video on demand from Wellgo Entertainment this Tuesday, March 18th. In the show notes below, you guys will also find links to all of our podcasts on our podcast network, more movie reviews like this, social media, how to support us financially through Paramount Plus, as well as Patreon, and that subscribe button below. So until next time, remember to keep it classy and keep it spooky. Have a great night.